All right, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Naima McQueen, and I am the Executive Director of Alliance for Community Development. And I'm so thrilled to be moderating this morning's panel, Making a Dollar Out of 15 Cents, Creating a Fundable Model. First of all, I'm just thrilled to be able to facilitate this conversation with you all. It feels like I'm sitting and chatting with my friends and getting to show y'all off to the panel. So thank you for letting me be in this position today. Today I am joined by right now 3, but soon to be 4 entrepreneurs, all of whom I know to be straight up go-getters. They have each utilized creativity, efficiency, and resourcefulness to turn their ideas into business and then into something that can support their families and communities. This in general is admirable in its own right. And today we're going to explore how entrepreneurs can level up those businesses and make those models work for them. We're looking to figure out how you attract your clients or customers, right, and funders. So we'll kick off our exploration of the ways in which each of these 4 folks have shifted from a functional model to get the business going to a fundable model for their business. And let's go ahead and kick off our introductions with Cinthya, then Yahshimabet, and then Alicia.
Hey everyone, my name is Cinthya Flores and I'm the founder of Oots Threads. Oots means good in Maya Quiche. It's the cooperative that I partner with in Guatemala. It's a weaving cooperative, about 15 women, and their weaving practices go back thousands of years. And so what we do as a business is we use these same practices to create everyday use products that we can carry around with us. Traditionally, we see them on blouses and like beautiful skirts, and although they're amazing to admire, we can't really do, like, I guess, like, other than like art lovers and textile lovers, they don't sell a ton. And so my objective to work with the women was to create products that we can make more marketable here in the U.S., here in the Bay Area, and that way that they can have more business. And yeah, so I know I have a minute, so I'm just gonna do this. Wow. And this is, so that's the smallest thing for Oots Threads.
Great. So my name is Yahshimabet Selassie. I am the founder and CEO of Yahshimabet, which was established in 2015. I am 17 years young, and I started my business at age 12 with the help of my family. I appeared on season 2 of the Kids Baking Championship on Food Network. I came in runner-up, and after that I was able to leverage my baking and my creative ideas to have a business. So I started doing pop-ups monthly at my mother's workspace in Oakland, and I would just make a bunch of different items that I love to make, and people would come and bring their families. And my focus with Yahshimabet is not just to focus on sweets, but to create a platform where youth can express their passions and turn them into businesses and just learn to trust themselves, because there's this idea that you have to go to school and then go to school some more to do a certain job, but it's more so about what we can do where we are at. There's this idea that, like, wait until you grow up. So one of my prerogatives is like, do it now. This is the time, you have the opportunity, and people really respect young voices. So I think that my role in my business is to empower youth to follow themselves and their instincts and just like trust their visions. Yahshimabet is using organic ingredients. I'm Jamaican and Ethiopian, so I use a lot of spices from my heritage. And I make wedding cakes, birthday cakes, cupcakes, granola. I recently made a cookie order for Google, and that's just a little bit about my business.
I guess I'll go. Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Kidd. I am an Oakland native, born and raised, and I have 2 companies. So I am a wine entrepreneur. One of my companies is called The Wine Noir. We are Oakland-based and Berkeley-based women wine company that specializes in wine import, distribution, and wholesale with women winemakers and winemakers of color. And then my other business is called Coco Noir Wine Shop. I am one of the co-owners and co-founders of a new Black-owned, women-owned, and minority-owned wine shop. Will be opening up in March of 2021, and we're going to specialize in amazing wines from winemakers of color and partner with amazing chefs of color and women as well as have an art space and just a community space for the community to grow the Oakland-based wine and food community. Been in the industry for a couple of years. I'm a little bit older, so yeah, I'll be giving my expertise and knowledge from, you know, just being in the business. I'm actually raising capital for one of my businesses right now with WeFunder. We've raised $60,000 in 30 days thus far. And yeah, so this is a great conversation.
Thank you all so much. I feel like I'm furiously writing notes because there's so much I want to come back to. But the first thing I wanted to just sort of call out and thank you all for is being so clear that you are infusing your own experiences and your heritage and your background into all parts of your work. I feel like I've had the pleasure to get to know each of you very differently. So Yashi, I don't know if you remember, but I actually met you probably when you were closer to 14, when you were doing ICA's program, and we met there, and I saw you speak at the entrepreneurship program, and I was like, yes, this one is going far. And if you all have not tried Yahshimabet, I encourage you. I heard wedding cake, so you know where I will be ordering my wedding cake from, just so you know. And Alicia, we met at a pitch competition, and I had the pleasure to record your pitch and to be able to first time that I really learned about your work. So I'm really excited about Coco Noir. I will be there. It sounds like Jasmine will be there with me. So we'll be there together.
Thank you.
And Cinthya, obviously we've had the pleasure to work together and now really be in community together as friends and colleagues. And I have to say, like, watching your business grow the way it has, even in the last 2 years of our friendship, has been so incredible. You've been able to really streamline your messaging, be really thoughtful about your client base. So I'm really excited to delve into that. So my first question today is really, what are the two most pivotal challenges you've experienced thus far in thinking about how to make your business model work for you? What are those walls that you look back on and you're like, yeah, that was a wall. I got over it, but it was certainly a challenge. Alicia, I wonder if you can speak to that first.
Yes, so some of the challenges that I had to overcome was, I guess, just being in an industry that is typically white male dominated and not many people of color, like number one, and then coming into it as an entrepreneur. I had worked in the industry for a year doing wine sales while I had my day job, but just having the audacity to just say, hey, I'm a Black woman and I'm coming into distribution. And then now, that was like very bold. In our community, it's like, you know, we think big, but then when you're at a level where in an industry where it's just, when you're not the only one, you know, you're an anomaly. So I think those are just having audacity, and then sometimes feeling some doubt, but then also I have a good tribe of people around me to encourage me. So yeah, it's just making bold moves. That's what, and I think I do it because I'm a little older. So I'm like, look, I gotta go hard or go home.
What would you say is, like, when you think back on the bold moves that you feel you had to make, what's the one that stands out for you? That one thing that you're like, yep, I did that. I'm proud of it. That's how I moved myself forward.
I think it was just deciding, because I did take the traditional route. I went to college, got my master's. I did that, like, by the time I was a certain age, like 25, I had all my degrees, and, you know, I was on this trajectory to being an attorney, but several attempts never could get the score I wanted. But I think once I settled into a career, I hit a turning point where I bought a condo, but I was just so tired of being in corporate America. So I just took a leave. Like, I just left a job to kind of just do a eat, love, pray for like 6-7 months, because I didn't know what I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what. So I think just doing that, knowing that I had this life set up, this life plan of doing things traditional, and then just breaking away, but knowing how it felt. I was going through a lot of inner turmoil, but I knew once I did it, it was a good thing. And then also it took me another couple of years of doing different business ventures to figure out what I wanted to do, maybe 7 years after. And then I found a business that I love, which is the wine and food industry.
I love it. Thank you so much. Cinthya, what about for you? What are some of those challenges that stick out for you, and what are ways that you moved past them when it came to deciding on a business model that worked for you?
Okay, so I will apologize. The neighbors are doing the grass blowing right now. But I'll try to speak loud. So I think for me, because the first round of products that I created with the weaving cooperative were very personal to me, because I went to Guatemala and I lived there for a year, and so I put, you know, a year's worth of work of creation of like working, going back and forth. So they were very personal to me, and I was really attached to them. But what I've noticed recently is that that there needed to be a shift in either the pricing model or the style of products. And so I recently linked up with a friend of mine who is also she is she went to school for design, and I fell into that position, and I had a lot of fun with it, but I wouldn't say it's my strength. But she did go to school with it. She reached out to me and was like, hey, Cinthya, I want to work with you. And so she's been pushing me a lot to be like, let's change this. You need to price a different way. You need to do things differently. So I think I'm actually in the middle of that wall. And recently she just, she's been challenging me so much. And I think what I would say that I've been experiencing is this moment of like, I didn't realize I was still so afraid of things. I thought like, oh, I started my business. I've gotten past that fear, but I've hit another wall of fear. Like, can I really sell products at that price point? Can I really sell these type of products? Can I do this? And so she keeps challenging me to say like, you need to change. If you're not seeing what you need right now, you need to do something different. And so I realized recently, like maybe last week, that I had been hitting that wall of like, no, I'm attached to what I have. I've done this for 2 years now. This is what I want. And she just keeps telling me, and she's really motivated me to like move past my fear of like what I think the products, like what I deserve, what we deserve for the products, myself and the women, like I think one of the mistakes I've made is pricing kind of low. And I say that because I understand the intense amount of work behind textiles, like the grueling, like hours and hours of like physical labor while you're doing textiles. And so she's been encouraging me to be like, no, you need to price higher. And I think one of my issues has been like I price too low, and then maybe people don't understand the value of it because they're like, why? I mean, maybe it's not made well. Like I've gotten a lot of surprises of people being like, wow, this is made so amazingly. And I'm like, did I not put that across? That's maybe a mistake that I made. But yeah, I think the fear of asking for what you deserve is a wall I recently hit, and that now I'm like, let's do it.
Let me ask you, Cinthya, because you've identified that wall as like an internal thing that you were able to come to. Were there any moments just with your inventory or your revenue that you sort of looked at it and said, I need to change these prices?
Yeah, I mean, recently with the pandemic and like the slowdown of sales, I realized that because the women are calling me and asking me like, do we have more work from you? Like, is there something we can do to create more work? And so I have this inventory sitting in my garage. And I realized that once I put it on sale, like I did a drastic, shameless plug here, 30% off sale right now at Flores.com. So I did that, and I realized that like I wasn't making the profit that I needed to make. And so that kind of just like reinforced, like she's asking you to be courageous and invest in yourself and in the women, like a bit more than where you are right now. And I realized, and that matched up with like, hey, when you put these on sale, it's not the profit that you need to be sustainable in the future. And so that's part of these two outside and inside factors just helped me decide that like that needs to change.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Yahshi, the same question for you. What's that one challenge that you look back on and say like that was the thing that was a deciding point for my business and my business model, and I knew I needed to change?
I would say that overall, one of the biggest challenges has been my age, because people see it as a restricting factor, or they don't want to listen to my ideas, or they think that somehow I can easily be taken advantage of. For example, I recently had an opportunity to make this 1,000 cookie order for Google, and all of the products were shipped to their employees. It was a big order because all of the products had to be shipped and packaged, which takes a lot more energy than if it's just like a pickup order. And then after that, I had an opportunity to make a 3,000 cookie order for Amazon. And this guy reached out to me and he was like, hey, I really would appreciate this and that. He asked for my price, and I told him, right, $3 per cookie. And people were like, people sometimes they tell me, they're like, that is so expensive. And I know my worth, so I know that it's not expensive because I know the time and energy I put into it, the quality of ingredients. So I felt like one of the most important things, back to what Cinthya said, was knowing your worth and having that attitude of like abundance, because then you're able to receive it. And sometimes I have to realize like there's a poverty mentality that is prevalent amongst Black and Brown communities. And in order to have generational wealth, we have to break out of that cycle and really sometimes study these business models of these mostly white males and what they do in their businesses and just the attitude that they have. Sometimes you go into a boutique and you see a product and you're like, why are they charging that price? I know that it's not. Why would they charge that price? What's so special about it? Is it handcrafted? Is it made by women in Guatemala who this is their work and their passion or whatever it is? There's not that story behind it. So sometimes I have to just remind myself, like, this is the cost. I'm aware of that. You don't have to say yes to every opportunity, because there's been plenty of opportunities where I was like, okay, I lost money, maybe I gained some exposure, but I now decide like what is meaningful for me. So I would say that to answer like the question of this conference, which is like making $1 out of 15 cents, I think it really comes down to your attitude, your internal, your self-talk, because that definitely changes your business. If you have this idea that, oh, I should put everything on sale all the time, and then you see that the numbers aren't coming in how you want them to, and then you look at another business and you're like, he's sitting back and relaxing, he's barely doing any work. Sometimes you have to reevaluate. So right now, I've been in a period of a lot of transition. I was a high school student. I graduated early as a junior. I was just awaiting this high school completion test that I had to take, which is now postponed. So I'm in the middle of navigating college courses and figuring out my business, coming out with merchandise, having products that are non-perishables, because I know that in order to really scale up, I have to do things in a way that is keeping in time my energy and not just like wearing myself out, taking time for myself when I need to. So during COVID, I decided to have subscription boxes. There was one point where I was shipping cupcakes. I would ship the cupcakes and then they had the frosting and they would assemble it, and it was a crazy idea that I had, and it worked, and I was like, this is amazing. Then I saw that some packages were like never getting delivered because of the way there was delays and everything, and I was like, this is not worth it. Like, I can't spend all this time packaging this product for this product to maybe not be delivered. But I can cross off my list like, hey, I learned from that experience. I really wanted to see what it would be like to ship cupcakes. And now I'm clear that I'm just shipping cookies. Recently, I had another package for this Google order. And I dropped it off to the USP, the postal office in Oakland. And I checked the tracking information, and it's been sitting there for 2 weeks. Right. And I'm like, okay. So I call my mentor, Serena, who I got in touch with her, who's helping me to like figure out consistent recipes, planning the things. She's a food scientist, so she's able to help me really do these things that I'm like, this is too much problem solving for me. I need some help. So it's been great to have a mentor, and asking for help is like when you can receive help, when you ask for help, you can receive help, and then you're able to like actually be of service to other people. So that's been another challenge that I had to overcome, was like having this limiting idea of like, oh, I'm able to do more than I actually am. So I give myself credit, but I'm also able to see like I have a lot of things to learn. There's a lot of people who are able to help me. And just knowing the value of yourself and your products is just able to help your business tremendously.
Thank you. I don't know about you all in the audience, but I feel like I've already filled up an entire page of notes with just my takeaways from the first question. I have 3 more. But I just wanted to recap really quickly what I heard in common and some of the themes that came out of all that you shared. The first is really that abundance mindset is knowing your worth, right? Knowing your numbers, knowing that your numbers make sense for you, and that you're able to have an honest conversation with yourself about the trade-offs for some of those decisions, right? Sometimes something provides exposure that you didn't have, and sometimes it's really just not worth the labor that you're putting into it. The other thing that I heard was to be really clear about who your people are, and like how deep in your corner are they, right? So really understanding who can complement your skills and can push you to think beyond what you're thinking of. Who can you have your business chats with, very vulnerable, authentic business conversations with, who you know will give you like the absolute real talk, you know, not just the yes folks, but the people who are like, that's a great idea, and have you considered X, Y, and Z? And then just being open to change in order to evolve and elevate your business. Really that understanding that at some point you're gonna have to say, okay, this isn't working in the same way. I've been, you know, married to this one way of doing things, and this may not work out in the way that I want it to. And then finally, I heard everyone bring up the unique challenges and sort of their pivots and adjustments for COVID-19. So I just want to appreciate y'all for laying out so many gems, for being so authentic in your experiences, and thinking through what that is. And so my second question as we're moving through the conversation is exploring what a fundable business model is in the first place, right? So what does it mean to you to be fundable? And so maybe we can, so I'm looking at time and I want to make sure we get through the last couple questions and grab some questions from the audience, but maybe we can do about 2 minutes per person. So what does that mean to have a fundable model for you? Let's start with Yahshimabet.
I would say having a fundable model for me means thinking about the future, what I have in mind, what elements of my business I would like to change. For example, I would like to have a cafe in the future. People always ask me, they're like, do you know how to cook? And I'm like, if I bake, don't you think that I would know how to cook? But yes, I have a lot of other passions that I'd like to infuse in my business. So to have a fundable business model is to think about, okay, what is the shelf life of this product? Okay, this is only a 1 to 2 day shelf life. Okay, that's not as fundable as a spice blend that can sit on the shelves. It can still maintain its freshness, etc. So right now I'm thinking about things that are more cost effective, time effective, if that's a term, like efficient in terms of like your time and energy put into the product. To have a fundable business model means to have integrity and to have a mission that somebody can get behind. They can see like, okay, this is about the youth, this is about social justice. To me, it's like the cookie that you get is like a very small part of the business. So it's about having the integrity come across in the whole aspects of the business.
What about for you, Alicia?
So for me, a fundable business model, of course, it has to be mission aligned, but any business I say that can solve a problem. I think that also that we have a passion for, that's mission aligned, that's for the community. You want to look at what is a problem that you can solve, right? And then from there, test that model and see, you know, on an audience. And then if it works, it works, you know. Also, to me, technology is something that always should be incorporated. And that's what we're at. Our wine shop is that we're going to have a mobile app. We're going to have, and just adding a tech component. So I always believe technology is the present and the future of how to futurize the food economy, how to futurize the wine economy. For me, just anything like that. So something that is, that is mission aligned, something that's a fundable business that can solve a problem or add a solution, something that's unique, that can't be replicated or duplicated, but that's going to solve a lot of problems in the current, present, and future.
Cinthya?
Right. So to add to what both Alicia and Yahshimabet has said is, I think also a really important element is the person running it and like their connection, their passion, their like I think it was in a talk recently with another organization that somebody asked why you, and that was just a really exciting question because I know I've heard from other people that like if some like let's say funders, if they're looking for people, it's like why do they believe that you are the person who's going to actually make it happen? Because like I think we all give our special touch to our businesses, like our life experiences and our passions and everything. And so that question was really exciting for me because of the fact that, with my passions for culture and supporting people through entrepreneurship and how everything just like really aligned beautifully in my story for me. And so I think seeing that in other entrepreneurs is also really exciting, hearing how somebody, their past and their connection to it, to what they're doing really like puts a spark in people's eyes. And it really, I think, gives a clear understanding of why no matter what happens in your business, you're gonna keep showing up and having like strength and pushing through all of these walls that we're dealing with. And so that's my vision.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of those thoughts. And I'm thinking about how you all spoke about earlier that one of the ways that you were able to overcome challenges, but also get yourself to fundable models were the folks in your corner. So I'm curious about whether you came into your business with all the skill sets you needed to run it, or were there people that like taught you along the way? Were there resources and organizations in the ecosystem that you partnered with to help get you to a place where you felt comfortable moving forward? And again, getting to that point where you're like, oh, someone could invest in this. Also, I did hear that Coco Noir is on WeFunder, so I'm just gonna plug that really quickly that everyone should go check that out. But yeah, so what resources did you tap into to help you get to where you are today? Let's start with Cinthya.
So as Naima mentioned earlier, we used to work together at the Alliance. And I actually started working with the Alliance right when I was starting my business. And so that was like a really beautiful alignment of events because I was able to learn about all of the resources that the Alliance connects people to. And so as I was learning about them and connecting people to them, I would do the research and figure out how amazing these organizations were, and then on my own time doing, reaching out. And so for just some of the Alliance, obviously for making the connection to all of these different organizations, Centro Community Partners, I did a business plan class with them, and I was able to meet a woman who was my mentor and who continues to be a friend and who supported me through the business plan development. Prospera Co-op, I'm blanking. Prospera is a co-op development program for Latina entrepreneurs. And so because I work with a cooperative in Guatemala, I learned a lot of co-op values of like, community development and supporting each other through like skills learning and everything that comes with co-ops. And so I was really interested in that and would like for my business one day to be a co-op here in the US. And so I did their program as well. I'd say Start Small, Think Big was also really good for like free marketing support and then also legal support. So I saw about 2 lawyers through them, 2 different organizations, law firms, that helped with like creating a privacy policy for my website, and then the other one walked me through the different types of an entity establishment for my business. So whether co-op would be the best or LLC first, because I'm a sole proprietor right now. And then yeah, so those 3, I'd say 4 are the top that I would talk about.
Thank you so much. Alicia, what about you? What organizations or resources or folks did you tap into to help bring you forward?
Yeah, so early on, when I first started my business, a lot of it was, I'm a business major. I graduated with a business degree. So a lot of it, I'm a reader. So I was already heavily into podcasts and business books and things like that, but also just reading books in the industry, being a part of some organizations within the wine industry, and then attending a lot of like events. But later, like I will say probably year 2 to 3, now I'm in the 3rd year, I partner with the Runway Project. I've attended ICA fun events. I'm part of different chamber of commerce, and I'm also part of a lot of wine association for wine business. And I'm taking business courses at Napa Valley Wine Academy. So it's a combination. When it comes to mentors, most of my mentors, they're not in the wine industry, and that's what I've always wanted. Like, someone to kind of mentor me in the industry, but I have mentors that are entrepreneurs. So, and the Runway Project has been instrumental. Kiva has I've partnered with Kiva recently with my funding. They've been instrumental in helping me, you know, just with the my current funding needs. So yeah, it's kind of like a combination of a community of that. And I'm partnered in the whole social impact. I partner with Jenny Casson on a lot of things too, with just raising money in the We Funder community as well. So.
Thank you. And Yahshimabet, how about you?
I would say that both of my parents are entrepreneurs. My mother has a pre and postnatal practice, bodywork and massage therapy, and my father has owned restaurants with my mother as well. So I have my father's background is like as an artist, graphic designer, marketing. He's a chef. There's a lot of different assets that my parents have that have been very useful for my business in terms of pricing, the ingredients, just all of these different things. I'm lucky to have that. I would say ICA has been a huge help. I took Michael C. Bush's, I can't remember the name of the course, but I took that a few years ago. And that was a super influential course. I was able to make connections with a lot of entrepreneurs who have like-minded values, who support my business. That's when I wholesaled shortbread cookies and granola at Red Bay Coffee, so they've been helpful. There's a lot of different people. I don't know why right now it's not coming to me, but I would say having the community and the connections that my family has, like all of the family friends, a lot on social media, has really helped to have my business like spread the word. And yeah, I think that's my short answer right now.
I appreciate that. Thank y'all so much. So I just want to recap so that folks hear the name of those organizations. But partnered organizations included Centro, Prospera Co-op, Start Small, Think Big, podcasts, industry, books and industry events, industry associations, really using those connections with folks who are doing the same work. ICA, and I know we've got some ICA folks on this session, so thank you all for that work that you do. The Runway Project, and then of course courses, right? A lot of schools offer community courses for different classes, and people are shifting to different affordable rates. So thank you all so much for dropping those gems for resources. And so I know we mentioned it a little bit. We talked about hints that she's made because of COVID-19, but I'm wondering if you could speak to us about opportunities to pivot prior to COVID-19, when you really had that sort of aha moment with yourself that you knew that you needed to shift to get to a more workable model. What was that aha moment if you shifted your model at all? And I think, Cinthya, I'm going to start with you. Oh, you're muted, friend.
You're just repeating the question. When was the moment that I realized I needed to shift something in my business? Mm-hmm. So I'd say definitely at the start when there was the fear of like not knowing if things would sell. My products aren't like they're not like, it's not food. It's not something that we need to use every day. It's, you know, and so, and then also some of the things are like a computer case. If you're staying home, you don't really need a computer case. I started thinking about these things, like how we can make them attractive in a time when people are, you know, not spending as much. So one thing that was really helpful was that I had some people reach out to do different kinds of collaborations. And so I did, I'd say like 3 or 4 virtual events and markets. And I realized that through a lot of collaboration, I was making sales. So individually, I wasn't really doing that. And so I wouldn't say I would collaborate with people a ton before. And I think when I got these invitations, I realized that that was the way that for now I can continue to make sales. And so I did a lot of virtual events and talks, and I've tried to figure out every way that I could to put myself out there with groups of, like, one of the groups I did was 10 different artisan businesses in Latin America and Peru and Colombia and Mexico and Guatemala. And so that was one of the things I did to shift a bit. And then the other one was, as I mentioned, was which feels really scary that during a time that people may not be spending as much, I'm going to create products that are more expensive and higher end. But as Yahshimabet, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But okay, great. So as you mentioned earlier, and I'm really impressed by just the way that you speak and the power that you hold in your words. But like that is the process that I've been going through. And I joke about how annoyingly entrepreneurship just makes you really look at yourself in the mirror, and that's not what I signed up for. But it's what's happening. Of like, no, you need to ask for more. And so I'm trying to shift to that mindset that you're saying of like, it's the abundance mindset that even though, at least, even though people may not be spending a lot, there are people who are. And like, I try to think about, like maybe some people have lost jobs. Not everybody has. Some people have certain situations. Not everybody does. So it's better to, assume the positive of like, we can do this. And so, yeah, those are my shifts recently.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pause for a second because I thought I saw our last speaker join the room. So if so, for our last speaker joining the group, if you could just request to share your audio and video, I can get you onto the screen with us. Aha, yes. Sorry, I'm so excited for this full panel. I'm feeling incredibly honored and nerding out with all of you. Hi, Brooklyn, welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Awesome.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So folks, we're gonna pause on this question really quick because Brooklyn, if you're ready, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, about your background, or about your different ventures, and then we'll jump back into some of the questions we were talking about.
You got it. I'll keep it really brief just because it looks like I'm late to the party. So I am Brooklyn. I have run a few businesses, including some that have happened online. I ran a magazine back in the day. I started my business as running a Kool-Aid and popcorn stand when I was 7. So I've got a lot of kind of that background stuff. And then I went into the last few years, I have spent time investing in businesses and teaching entrepreneurs how to start their own. So yes, jump me in the question and let's roll.
Thank you. I'm actually going to pause one more second because something you said reminded me. At some point, we're going to explore how far back this entrepreneurship leg goes for so many of us. You sharing a little bit about your background, and I was thinking about this the other day with a colleague. I was like, you know what? I didn't realize that I was an entrepreneur, but I was out here selling lemonade, selling greeting cards at 6, 7 years old. I think the cuteness sold most of it, but it worked, right? We were all doing that kind of thing. And so often, I think, especially as folks of color, we're almost socialized not to see that value, not to see that what we're bringing to the world in that way. And so we don't necessarily, I was in this conversation where folks were like, I don't necessarily associate myself with the word entrepreneur. It feels removed from me. And so what does it look like to own that word and to own that identity in this moment as you're all sort of growing and coming into this thriving business ecosystem in your industries as these business owners. So let's go ahead and continue with our question. So really talking about what aha moments you've experienced. At what point did you sort of internally take a look and say, it's time to shift how I'm doing this? And so, Alicia, why don't we continue with you?
Well, I think for me, it was COVID a little bit. And then before then, I had also wanted to open up a retail shop anyway, but COVID forced, because in my business is heavily event-based, especially with the type of wines that the wine partners that I partner with in wholesale as well as direct to consumer. So pivoting to an 100% online model, 100% shipping. So I do virtual events all the time, and just shifting that impersonal experience into a virtual space. And really ramping up my email marketing. Like I do 2 newsletters a month, but it's like, just heavily putting myself on social media more, launching, just more content. So just, getting just pivoting technology wise, and then while still building out a brick and mortar. Like, what is that going to look like in 2021? You know, how is, you know, outdoor seating, like, just so still incorporating a sense of how, when we get back into socialization, what is that new life going to look like? So operating, you know, when I have a brick and mortar, we're going to have to probably, again, we're ramping up online and in store together, you know, mobile app and online. So that is a big part of like how we're going to do business. Technology, that's going to drive email marketing. So I think looking at how within an industry, the wine and food industry is not, they're a late adopter to technology, in my sense, when it comes to when you run a physical store or in the distribution and wholesale. So really just futurizing and digitizing those models. So what's coming out of that is, okay, do I need to create, like I'm creating an app, do I need to create a inventory software, you know? Like I'm thinking like that so that I can license it to other brick and mortars, you know? So that's kind of like what I'm looking at going forward once we get our retail shop open, and everything is a test case off of our store. So we have a mobile app, you know, that will be coming. How will that work? And then how can I license that technology to other wine shops and other, et cetera, other sales technology?
Thank you. And Brooklyn, same question for you as someone who has operated multiple ventures. When have those aha moments been for you to sort of stop and say it's time to shift how I'm operating in this moment?
Yeah, I will say, and I'll say, I think Alicia really kind of hit on this or hinted on this, is I realized that I had to start building a system and not just creating a job for myself, right? Like in the beginning, it was so much built off of my passion and what I love to do. But after 5 years of doing that, I no longer had the same love and passion for that thing. But it was a business. It was a thing that actually was, it's like giving birth to a child. That baby could go off to school and do her own thing. And so I would say that one of the biggest aha moments for me was, don't create a job, create a system, and create something that will not need me. Now, will I want to go check on her at school and cry in the window when she's successful at her little kindergarten class? Absolutely. But it could not be something that was so dependent on my existence to survive. And that one I think was just huge for me.
Quoting that and putting it on the wall as a reminder. Thank you. And obviously, Yahshimabet, what about for you? Those aha moments.
I think all of these women touched on it. I would say that important for me was definitely, I love the last part about creating a system that doesn't depend on you, because that's basically what I'm focusing on doing right now. How to live my life, do my schoolwork, have my own time back. Because one of the biggest moments for me was realizing, and it still is, realizing how I don't have a kitchen space yet. So I've been running my business out of my home with the cottage kitchen license, which is extremely strenuous. Having the business take over the house has been hard, because it's hard to distinguish, okay, am I working right now, or am I enjoying my free time, or like, why am I feeling like this is an obligation I have to my business right now when I was just gonna go read this book, like all of those different things. So for me right now, I actually have a potential kitchen space, which I'm super excited about, which I was able to use for the Google order at Gray Street Catering. So I'm super excited to just have those connections and like trusting the process that the people who you need will come in divine timing, and like being patient, and also just realizing that you really have to ask for what you need. Because if you continue to do something in a certain way, then like you're allowing that to continue, which is basically like, and if you expect different results from that, then that's just insanity, because you're thinking that somehow this can lead to a different result. So right now I'm like, okay, I'm completely eliminating that. We're not doing that anymore. I sent the email to my mentor. I was like, hey, she's like, okay, perfect. We can have Monday. And I was like, great. Because certain things I was like, you know what? It's just not cool for the way the shipping is taking so long. That's just not acceptable. You can't get your cookies 3 weeks later. That's not how it works. So all of the different responsibilities have been like, okay, is this my responsibility, or should I be asking somebody for help? So that's been a big aha moment, along with the pricing, because I feel like I made wedding cakes. I've made like maybe 5 wedding cakes or so. I made my first wedding cake when I was 13. Somebody had asked me, they were like, "Do you make wedding cakes?" And I was like, "I'm gonna make you a wedding cake." I was like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." And I trusted myself that it would work out. I knew the aesthetic they had in mind. I knew what I was capable of. I was like, it's just knowing the pressure of this is a wedding cake. I haven't done this before. I did it, it was beautiful, and then people started asking me, they were like, "Oh my gosh, you make wedding cakes?" And so for me, it's figuring out what I love doing, that I'm like, okay, this is where I will be in the business. Like, I love cake decorating, I love design. That's something I'm passionate about. So I'm like, okay, maybe you don't want to do that. You don't want to weigh the cookies anymore. You've done thousands of that. It's tiring. You don't want to do that. So figuring out how I'm shifting it to still like the aspects that I am doing, I love. Social media marketing is a whole nother piece of work. That is something where I'm like, you know what? Time to hire somebody to do that, because one thing I'm not doing is that right now I'm on a social media break. I've been like, hey, you can miss me. I'm doing my things. I'll come back with a great announcement. But just having the discernment to take the time for myself has been crucial for just like my own mental, physical, spiritual health. So I would say that's really important, because some people just, I see how they wear themselves down with their business. And I'm like, I don't want to be working that hard. The reason why I started this so young is so that like I can also continue to live my life, go on those vacations, spend the time with my family, all of the things that are important to me. So I think I've said enough, but that's my answer.
Thank you so much. I mean, y'all are just so honest, and I want you all to put together curriculum for, entrepreneurship bootcamp classes. Audience, I have about 2 questions left, but I want to invite you to drop any questions you have for our panelists into the chat, and I'll go ahead and try and get through as many of them as I can. For these last 2 questions, I'm just going to ask for some pretty brief answers. The first one is, I'm curious, and I'll share more about that curiosity, but how often do you discuss your financials and or just money in general with your community? How often are those conversations happening? And I'm going to start with Brooklyn, because I belong to a couple of those communities that Brooklyn moderates, so I know the answer, but I would love to hear you share that out so that we're all on the same page.
Every second that I get, right? Like, not so I'll give it very briefly. I was not talking about money with my community, and not even just with like my Black and brown community, but I really started talking to like white women about their money. Then I started talking to white men about their money. And it's so starkly different what I was charging to what someone else was charging. And so one, just talking about that money helped me like eliminate some of that wealth gap as much as I can, right? Knowing that there's a systematic thing happening with that. And then me and my homies talk about money every day. I know what they're investing in. I know where they're putting money in their 401k. One's buying a house. They break down that process for us. Like, they tell us what their APR percentage is on that mortgage, so that when we go to ask for a mortgage, we know, oh, she got 2.5%. You better come back to me at 2.5%. You know what I mean? Like, our credit reports. I know how much, another one got a business loan during PPP. I know how much that is. I know when they got to pay it back. I know how long it's stretched over. Like, if we're not talking about all of those details about money, that's when we get left not knowing what's going on, right? And that's when you're dealing with these things by yourself. And I think that that's super, super hard. And it leaves us, they say knowledge is power. Like, I really do believe that. And I think knowledge about money is how we dismantle these systems that we really want to dismantle. So that's my long brief.
That's right. I was waiting for it. I was like, everyone should hear all of this story. And Brooklyn, if you wouldn't mind, for those who are interested, if you do have some open Facebook groups that folks may be willing, if they're willing to have these conversations, can join. If you want to drop those in the chat. Cinthya, what about for you? How often are you talking about financials or money with your community?
I'd say that I'm in the recent learning stages of money, so I wouldn't say too often. And the people that I surround myself, I don't think a ton of us know a lot about money, but I definitely now that I've fully accepted, you know, that what you're saying, Brooklyn, that we have to educate ourselves and that we have to learn in order to move ourselves out of where we are and create generational wealth, and that we need to know more. And so recently I started signing up for like, I have some IG friends who do, you know, social media people that I've never actually met before that I talk to all the time about everything that they're doing related to money, to travel. So I've done a couple of those like webinars and things like that. But I'd say that I do try to share as much as I can with people, like you know, about home related things and financing and for cars and things like that. I try to share that with my friends, and for the most part, most people will just be like, "Oh, I didn't know that," or "I didn't know that was an option," or "I didn't know we were," you know, I had to pay attention to that. But I understand the importance, and I think I definitely want to become a lot more intentional this year about. I actually have that on my vision board. Like, I need 2021 to be my year where I become really financially savvy. I want to be able to understand what's going on so I can start making moves.
I love it. And I see that Brooklyn just plugged in that email. So make sure you reach out, connect, y'all. Alicia, what about you?
Well, I mean, now that I'm raising capital, it's like I'm talking money all the time. I had to do our business plan. I had to, it's just a lot, like literally, like pitching, you know, so just always like in startup mode in a new business, just really. So for business, I'm talking about money all the time. Personally, I think like it's like ebb and flows, right? It's kind of like you have good seasons and highs and lows. But I just, I've been I own a condo. So it's kind of like I bought one back in the day, like 2008. So, and I'm still in it. So it's just learning that game and, you know, just maintaining here in California. So, but yeah, most of my friends, we talk about money. We talk about the good and bad. I've been through several iterations of economies, through the .com, I bought my condo when the recession was tanking in 2008, you know, so, and have been through several iterations of that economy, you know, and just, so it's like now I think like being an entrepreneur has helped, and being, instead of having a 9-to-5, it has really forced me to, because when I transitioned out of working from a 9-to-5, I had a check every 2 weeks. I had a healthy retirement. I had to kind of borrow, you know, like lean. So I've been at lows, and now it's like learning how to maintain. So with that being said, I'm reading right now called What Your Financial Advisor Isn't Telling You, right? So it's kind of like now I'm re-educating myself. I'm 41, right? So I basically, in the next 10 years, I started my business at 37. So I'm going hard between now and 49. So it's like I have to be very aggressive, right? In my investments and things like that, in multiple streams. So really a lot of my friends are 35 to 50. So we have already had some properties. We've had good and bad credit. We've spent money. We've saved money. We've had no money. We've had jobs and jobs. So now it's all about just advanced, like taking more aggressive investments. So like for me, I'm doing UIL insurance policies. I am single. I don't have children, but if I do in the next couple of years, or if my lifestyle changes, so I'm looking a lot into investing in UIL insurance policies. I'm looking into stocks aggressively, you know, just things like that, real estate, acquiring more real estate, and just diversifying my income. So mine's is a little bit more advanced because I'm getting, by the time I'm 50, hopefully I don't look like I'm 50, but I'll be that in 8 years. It's like, I don't want to work as hard. I just kind of want to advise people and businesses and just let my businesses run on their own. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Yahshimabet, very briefly, how often are you talking about your financials and money and in your communities?
I would say that I don't necessarily talk about financials within my community. If my community is considered like, I mean, I talk about it within my family. We have full transparency around that. I mean, I can't even have my own I just have a high school checking account. They don't want you to do anything. They don't want you to see your savings. That they like to have this whole trap. So I'm very transparent with my parents, so I can just ensure what's happening on the back end, etc. I talk about money, I feel like all the time. I feel like it's just like, for me, it's about the freedom that comes from it. So I'm able to have these conversations now so that I can see that when I'm older, there's certain things that I'm not doing and there's a certain freedom that I have. Because to me, the money is just like the stepping stool to get to where I really want to be. It's not about a greed thing. It's about like, okay, I also have to remember, what are all these white people doing? Some of them are just inheriting from their families and they can just sit back and they're not working.
Yep.
What do I create for my generations to come? And I'm just on that role of like leadership more. So I think that that is important in talking about money. And yeah, it's an important conversation to have, especially when it comes to your competitors and other people in the industry, and just seeing like, okay, that's what they're doing. What is the cost of goods? All of the different things, and just being fully transparent. And just being transparent with yourself. Like, I think Michael Bush, when I was in growth strategies class, he was like, talk about the money. He was like, this is not something you just put to the side. Like, you need to really have that talk with yourself. Like, you need to be transparent with yourself to have the growth mindset.
Thank you all so much. I love this question and I love to ask it because I think for many of us, we were socialized not to have these conversations, that these conversations are taboo. When in fact we need to have them so that we can leverage them, right? So that we can move each other ahead in community. We are coming up on time, so I'm in a facilitator's kind of hot seat where I see lots of questions from folks and I want to get them answered. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna be able to get through maybe 2 questions. So maybe I'll do 2 answers for folks per question if that works for you all. So this first question, I'm gonna go ahead and throw over to Alicia and Yahshimabet. And the question is around what kind of self-care practices do you engage in when you're faced with a hard decision? Let's start with Alicia first.
So I'm big on, like, I'm a spa. I do self-care Sundays. I have my spa kit here. I have my hair steamer. So I'm big into, like, I go to spas, period, but I've made my home my oasis. And so if I have a decision that I need to make on work, I'm not on social media, so I use that as a pamper day. And just really think about like my wins, my successes, and think about decisions that I need to make. Go with my internal gut, Some other self-care practices, I do work out. I have a Peloton bike. I've lost 40 pounds since this whole pandemic. So I'm an avid cycler. So I cycle and I do a lot of working out to keep me sane, to keep and eating right, So a lot of it is your self-care. Like, no matter what your business is, you have to take yourself. So I have an extensive skin routine. My hair is natural, so I'm really into natural care and self-care. I live in the wine, so I'm always in Napa. Just like really, that's like my place. So I go to a vineyard and just go by myself and read a magazine. That's work for me. So just, things like that. So I'm big on Black women and brown women. Don't put the capital first, put your self-care, that's important. And then that will follow.
Thank you. And what about for you, Yahshimabet?
I would say that self-care is super essential, especially because of navigating school, navigating my business, navigating my family. All of those things are just like, I think that people have this idea that you have to, they're like put the pressure on, but they don't have this idea that like you need to relax sometimes, which like I'm a go-getter. I will admit that if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. Sometimes I'm in the kitchen till 3 a.m. That is what it is. It's a part of the process and I embrace that. So as much as I embrace that, I embrace my self-care practices because I know that nobody's going to do it. I don't know who needs to hear this, but nobody is going to do that. That is you. That is your self-care. That is what you are responsible for. And you gain so much from doing that. So, I mean, I got my hair braided. I have natural hair, so I know that's a beast sometimes. So all of those different things. I love skincare. I have different businesses that I'd like to go into. I definitely want to have a skincare, hair care companies focusing on Black women and natural beauty. So I have different things that I want to do. So I am able to just have those self-care practices, which look different for everyone. So you have to know what works for you. Like for me, taking a break from social media is really important because that's how I restrict people's access to me. So I think that's a big one. Like, okay, I'm not going to be on my phone at this time. You can wait. Just like being able to say like, okay, this is not more important than me right now, because everybody puts themselves first. Like everybody's in it for themselves, so you have to put yourself first.
Thank you so much. And so I want to recognize we are just coming up at time, but if folks are willing to stick around for a couple more minutes, I would really love to hear this final question from Brooklyn and Cinthya. And the question is, who are your business role models? Let's start with Brooklyn, and then we'll wrap up with Cinthya.
Good question. Who are my business role models? I'll be honest, it's every Black woman that I see getting her shit done and like making it come through Instagram and the internet, and the one that's at the corner. Like I love the hot dog and bacon people out that used to be outside of every Oakland club. Like I just love to see us doing it in real time. And I don't so much, it used to be back in the day, things like Mark Cuban and Oprah Winfrey and these kind of impossible standards that we've set that didn't, like, as I started to understand how business worked, like, you know, Oprah is really a big employee. She turned that into something very beautiful, but she started as an employee. And so wanting to look at people who could really get the work done. And how do you make it successful when you don't have a $1 billion company backing you? When it's just, you know, you and your cookie sheet, you know what I mean? Like, so those are the people who I think really inspire me, because if they can do it, shit, I can do it, you know?
Thank you. What about for you, Cinthya?
So I was gonna say something like what you just said, someone super like not unattainable, but you know, we can all do something to that effect, right? But the point that you make, Brooklyn, reshapes my answer to say that, and this is so corny, but my mom is an entrepreneur, and what I really appreciate about her is that like English is not her first language. She wasn't born in this country. And then sometimes she just shocks me sometimes because I'm like, you don't know how badass you are? I'm sorry, what? And she's like, wait, like super surpassed idea that anyone in our family or has ever imagined, all these things. And she's always like, but this year's gonna be more. I'm like, damn, okay. So I always feel like sometimes, so she's in real estate, she sells homes, and she wears high heels all the time, and she's always walking in, she's like almost 5 feet tall and little woman and with like a really big personality. And so she'll just be like, oh, I walked 4 hours in the hot sun today in my heels, knocking on doors. And I'm just like, if you do that, I need to get up right now and go do this thing that I was like, I don't want to do it. So yeah, she's always like putting a fire under my ass all the time. And so yeah, that's probably my closest role model.
I love it. Thank you all so much just for sharing all of your experiences, for being authentic and vulnerable in this session today and with me in conversation. I am so in awe and so inspired by all of you. I feel very humbled to have different relationships with you all, and really looking forward to see, you know, where we all evolve and how your businesses evolve. Folks, I definitely encourage you to connect to our speakers through their profiles, continue the conversation. I know there's still some burning questions, but in this moment, I just want to share a heartfelt thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And I'll be following up with each of you for follow-up events.
Yes.
So as a reminder, hopefully in the future we'll have these wonderful folks again, maybe an extended workshop in AMA, Ask Me Anything. So in this moment, we're about to transition to lunch. As a reminder, you can go ahead and check out our networking session, which should be on the left-hand side of your screen, or our expo booth. Some of our speakers here are featured during that expo, so go check those out. For anyone interested in learning more about Alliance and our navigation services, which is to help connect you to those resources that we've heard about today, we do have a booth in the expo section, so you can go ahead and check out more about our work and schedule time with our navigators. I'm sure you can tap Cinthya about that experience too, as she used to be one of our navigators. But with that, I'll just say thank you again, and everyone hydrate, have some good lunch, and we'll see you at the main stage at 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, amazing to hear your stories.
Amazing.
Likewise.
Bye.